Hello and welcome to another video. My name is Julie if you're new here, and today I'm going to tell you about my 10 favorite queer books. I thought it would be a great idea to make a list like this for Pride Month, so I did. But I am a basic bitch, okay? So you might have heard about some of these books, but there are also some books on there that are not as popular, so I hope you can still find some new books to read from this video. Also, this list is in order, so I'm going to go from place 10 on the list to place 1 on the list, and I'm going to tell you my all-time favorite at the end of the video, so stay tuned for that. Number 10 on this list is this one, Will Grayson by John Green and David Levithan. I have no idea if I'm pronouncing this correctly, I'm sorry. So, this says, one cold night, in a most unlikely corner of Chicago, two strangers cross paths. Two teens with the same name, running in two very different circles, suddenly find their lives going in new and unexpected directions, culminating in heroic turns of heart, and the most epic musical ever to grace the high school stage. This book was such a fun read. It has the most funny premise, two people with the same name meeting and their lives crossing paths. It is also written by two authors, and each one of them has written one Will Grayson. So each of them has written one point of view, which makes the voices of the characters really unique. I think this is a very good way to achieve this, actually. I never thought about it like that, because most authors just write two points of views and it's the same author writing it, but sometimes that can make them kind of sound similar in the way that they are thinking, and here this definitely isn't the case. The characters are very distinct from each other, and it's also a very funny book. It made me laugh out loud a couple times, so there were some really good parts in it. This book also has like the typical John Green teenage relatability that I personally love. Both authors actually achieved this in their writing. Most of the time while I was reading this book, I actually had no idea where the story was going, and I liked that a lot. It really kept it interesting, and I'm usually pretty good at guessing plot twists or where a story is headed, and I didn't with this book, so I would really recommend it. Next book, number 9 on my list, is One Last Stop by Casey McQuiston. This was such an interesting story. I think Casey McQuiston really did great there, especially because the story is really unique, and I believe if someone has a great first novel or a novel that is really successful, the successor of that novel, which is this one, it's going to be really hard to write a book that can live up to the hype of you as an author, and I really think Casey McQuiston did a great job with this. Because on the one hand, you want to keep the readers that were hooked with your first story to still be interested in what you're writing next, but you also don't want it to be the same book over again. And I think this was achieved here. So the blurb says, for cynical 23-year-old August, moving to New York City is supposed to prove her right. That things like magic and cinematic love stories don't exist, and the only smart way to go through life is alone. She can't imagine how waiting tables at a 24-hour pancake diner and moving in with too many weird roommates could possibly change that. And there's certainly no chance of her subway commute being anything more than a daily trudge through boredom and electrical failures. But then there's this gorgeous girl on the train, Jane. Dazzling, charming, mysterious, impossible Jane. Jane with the rough edges and swoopy hair and soft smile, showing up in a leather jacket to save August's day when she needed it most. August's subway crush becomes the best part of her day, but pretty soon she discovers there's one big problem. Jane doesn't just look like an old-school punk rocker. She literally displaced in time, from the 1970s. And August is going to have to use everything she tried to leave in her own past to help her. Maybe it's time to start believing in some things, after all. So yeah, this book had So many great things. And what really stood out to me here was that there was an element of time traveling in this, and it was actually good. It felt authentic, which is weird to say about time traveling. There were many parts of this book and many points of this book that, in my opinion, were really smart choices of the author. And I really applaud them for the hard work that they must have went into this. What also was a great part of the story were the side characters. I think Casey McChristen always does a very good job with that, with creating exciting and interesting side characters so they don't feel like props in the story, they feel like actual human beings and actual interesting parts of the story. And yeah, that was great. The only thing I personally didn't enjoy as much, or I didn't connect with as much, were the 70s references. I just don't know enough about that time to really connect with that. And I guess the story would have been even better if I could have connected with that. But it was still nice to read about something pretty unusual, at least in contemporary romance. So yeah, would also recommend this book. Next up is a book that I don't physically own. Place 8 on my list is Fake Out by Eden Finley. I did recommend this book on my channel before, but I guess I didn't read the blurb to you yet, so I'm going to do that. Maddox. The reason I rarely go home is 3 simple words. I'm a liar. When the pressure to marry my childhood sweetheart became too much, I told her I was gay and then fled to New York, like my ass was on fire. Now 5 years later, and after a drunken encounter, I find myself invited to her wedding. And I have to bring my boyfriend. The boyfriend who doesn't exist because I'm straight. At least, I think I am. Meeting the guy I'm bribing to be my boyfriend for the weekend makes me question everything about myself. Damon. When my sister asks me to pretend to be some straight guy's boyfriend, my automatic response is to say no. It's because of guys like him people don't believe me when I tell them I'm gay. But Maddox has something I need. After an injury that cost me my baseball career, I'm trying to leave my playing days behind and focus on being the best sports agent I can be. 48 hours with my sister's best friend in exchange for meeting a possible client. I can do this. I just wish he wasn't so hot, or that he didn't kiss me like he means it. Wait, why is the straight guy kissing me? So, this is really what you can expect from the book as well. It's like dual point of view. This is the actual tone that the book is written in, and I enjoyed it so much while I was reading it. This book is very sweet, very wholesome, without any unnecessary drama, and I love this book as a romance book, just in general. The only reason why I didn't put this higher up on this list is that it's not as deep as the other ones, and therefore didn't have like this long-lasting impact on me. But I do love plain old romance books, and this is just a very good romance. It's typical fake dating, and that doesn't mean it's boring. I believe this is very well executed, so if you like fake dating romances, then check this out. And if you happen to enjoy this, maybe also check out my video on fake dating romances, where I also recommended this book. Next up we have Ari and Dante Discover the Secrets of the Universe. And I have no idea how to pronounce the name of the author. I believe he's called Benjamin O'Leary Sines. At least that's what an interviewer pronounced his name like, so if that's wrong, I tried and it's his fault. Dante can swim. Ari can't. Dante is articulate and self-assured. Ari has a hard time with words and suffers from self-doubt. Dante gets lost in poetry and art. Ari gets lost in thoughts of his older brother who is in prison. Dante is fair-skinned. Ari's features are much darker. It seems that a boy like Dante, with his open and unique perspective on life, would be the last person to break down the walls that Ari has built around himself. This book is such a beautiful coming of age story. And it is actually pretty young, but I would still say it's very deep. I know that if I had read this book in middle school, I would have loved it with all my heart, and I do love it now, but I would have loved it even more if I had read it at that age. I like the general themes in this book. It centers a lot around friendship and family and finding yourself, obviously, because it's a coming of age story. The book has a really great atmosphere to it, and I can't really describe it other than saying it feels like a long day of summer where you go to like a lake and go swimming, and then as the sun goes down you can hear the cicadas in the background. That's the kind of vibe I'm getting from this. So yeah, that's my description of the book. I hope it helps. It's really beautiful, and if you enjoy middle grade or young adult books in any way, I would highly recommend this. The next book is an older one that I have owned since forever, really. It's Luna by Julie Ann Peters. Regan's brother Liam can't stand the person he is during the day. Like the moon from whom Liam has chosen his female name, his true self, Luna, only reveals herself at night. In the secrecy of his basement bedroom, Liam transforms himself into the beautiful girl he longs to be, with help from his sister's clothes and makeup. Now everything is about to change. Luna is preparing to emerge from her cocoon. But are Liam's family and friends ready to welcome Luna into their lives? I have probably read this book at least 10 times. I honestly can't tell you why I like this book so much. It has a pretty straightforward plot, and there isn't like this one plot point or anything I can name that really got me, but it just did. It was my compass read for the longest time for some reason. That's also why I've read it so many times. I love the coming of age themes in this book as well. And I personally really like that it's told from Regan's perspective and not from Luna's. I know that some people might disagree with this because they would say that we should get like the perspective of the trans person or not be like one person removed from that. But I felt like it was a really interesting way to tell the story. I know that when I read this, I got really interested in learning more about what it means to be trans, and I think that was also what the book was trying to achieve at that time, because this was published in 2004, and at that time, at least when I read this, I don't know of any other book that I have seen really anywhere in bookstores that would tell trans stories. So yeah, this book just had a big impact on me. And what I think is great about this book is that even though it was published in 2004, it manages to tell the story of trans characters, that it still managed to not be invasive or voyeuristic in any way. At least for me, it did not feel like it was. I honestly think that it was a big step in the right direction that this book was published. Actually, this book belongs to my mom, but I took it with me when I moved out, so yeah. Thanks to my mom for raising me right and giving books like this one to me when I was, I don't know, 12 or so. So yeah, I'm really happy that I read this at such a young age. And that's why it's always going to have like a place in my heart. Next up we have Heartstopper by Alice Oseman. I just recently read this. I read the first 3 parts of the series in the blog, and I loved them. These are graphic novels that were available online first, and now they also have been published as books. I love the drawing style, I love the characters, just everything about this really. I can't wait to read the last 2 books in this story, and to me this feels really hopeful, even though it does have some negative or hard-hitting themes in it, I still feel like it is a hopeful book. I think Alice Oseman found a great balance here between it being romantic but still being nuanced enough to not be unrealistic. Alice Oseman just is a great storyteller, and that's all I have to say about this. The next book is a German book. It is The Center of the World by Andreas Steinhöfel. And this book used to be my favorite for so long. 17-year-old Phil has felt like an outsider as long as he can remember. All Phil has ever known about his father is that he was number 3 on his mother's long list, third in a series of affairs that have set Phil's family even further apart from the critical townspeople across the river. As for his own sexuality, Phil doesn't care what the neighbors will think. He's just waiting for the right guy to come along. But Phil can't remain a bystander forever. Not when he's surrounded by his mother, Glass, who lives by her own rules and urges Phil to be equally strong. His sister Diane, who is abrupt and willful, with secrets to share. His uncle Gable, a restless mariner, defined by his scars. His best friend Kat, who is generous but possessive. And finally there's distant Nicholas, with whom Phil falls overwhelmingly in love, until he faces the ultimate betrayal and must finally find his worth and a place in the world. This book is so special to me. It used to be my favorite book for the longest time. I really connected with the main characters back then, and even though it is a very slow-paced book, I still felt like it was exciting to read. It has some elements of magical realism in it, and kind of felt like reading a fairy tale with a lot of hidden meaning in it. What I really liked about this is that most of the characters are really ambivalent. They aren't just good or just evil. They're always kind of both. That's a really cool thing to do as an author. This is probably the least known book on this list, so I would highly recommend you to pick it up, because I think it deserves more people who read it. Book number 3 on my list is Call Me By Your Name by Andre Esseman. This book, oh my god, it's just full of love. This novel is set in the 1980s and it follows 17-year-old Elio, who is the son of an academic and he's living in Italy. And he's spending the summer in his family's summer house. Elio is such a precious main character. He spends his days reading, swimming in the pool, just chilling. When the 24-year-old Oliver arrives, who is his father's research assistant, Elio is instantly drawn to him. As the summer progresses, Elio's and Oliver's relationship becomes progressively more intimate and passionate, while Elio is really struggling to reconcile his feelings for Oliver with the societal norms and expectations of the time. They also don't really talk about whether their relationship is a relationship or what it is, and there is a lot of angst and pining in this book, which I liked, but it broke my heart. Especially because both of them know that Oliver is leaving at the end of the summer. This book is just so bittersweet. If this word has ever fit anything, then it is that book. I just love everything about it. The setting, the characters, the feelings. It really felt like I was going through all of it with the characters. And that's also why I cried a lot while I was reading this. Next we have another one by Casey McQuiston, Red, White and Royal Blue. I have also recommended this book before, so I'm trying to keep it short here. This book is so cute and so fluffy, but the storyline is still very interesting and has a lot of plot to it, really. It is set in this idealized world, which is great to escape the real-life madness that is going on at the moment. It has great side characters as well. Friendship is an important part of this book. Also, amazing pop culture references. I love them so much, even though I understand it might be a little too much for some people. This book is definitely the happy place in this list. A lot of books that I recommend have darker or moody vibes, but this one really made me smile the whole time. Number 1 on my list is The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. This is just my all-time favorite book in general. I love it so much. Of course I had to include it in this list. It is a retelling of Achilles' story and how he fell in love with Patroclus. And I love the way that it was told. A lot of historical characters are being told as straight, and I don't know why. Because they might as well just have been gay, and we all know the they were roommates thing. So I'm really glad that this story is being told as a gay story. But it's so much more than that, and I don't really know how to put this in words. It is also a story about fate and how you can escape it, or if you can escape it. And I cried my eyes out so much while I was reading this. Oh my god. It really is such a good love story. It's unbelievable. It's so good. Especially the writing. It's just beautiful. I think about this book a lot, and I think I need to reread this very soon. So yeah, these were my 10 favorite queer books. Just a short disclaimer, I know this book could be more diverse than it is, and I hope that in the future I will find more books that I enjoy that feature a wider range of characters. And that's also why I'm trying to read more sapphic books in the future. And I already asked you for recommendations for that, and I got so many great recs. So I will hopefully be reading these pretty soon, and then I might be doing an updated list. I hope you found some new books to read from this list, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!